Hello and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
The headlines in the southeast this Wednesday evening. A troubled 24 hours. The Prime Minister rocked after Conservative MPs and ministers across the region resign. They say the trust has gone and Boris Johnson must go.
The game is up, and I think secretly he must know that.
Hundreds of dinghies and life jackets seized and scores of suspects arrested as the National Crime Agency leads a crackdown on the cross-channel people smugglers.
Also tonight, as we count down to the Kent County Show, is this the future of farming? The robots heading out to a field near you. And talking of the great outdoors...
And surrounded by all this lavender, you could be forgiven for thinking we were in Provence. Thankfully, we're much closer to home. You could be here too, and I'll be back later with all the details.
Good evening. It's been a bruising 24 hours for the Prime Minister. He's suffered resignation after resignation from ministers at cabinet level down to junior ministerial ranks. MPs from the south and southeast from his own party have lined up with opposition politicians to denounce him in the strongest possible terms.
Well, this time last night he issued a public apology, but it wasn't enough. And after his Chancellor and his Health Secretary walked out, today junior ministers like Mims Davies from Sussex, John Glenn from Salisbury, Laura Trott from Kent and David Johnston from Oxfordshire all quit. In the words of one of those ministers, all trust had been lost.
Well, it's a story that's developing all the time. Let's go live to Westminster for the latest and our reporter Richard Slee. Richard, Boris Johnson's badly bruised, but he still seems to be fighting on tonight.
Yes, well, one national newspaper today compared the Prime Minister to a greased piglet. Such is his ability to squeeze out of tight spots. But these resignations today of ministers from the south and southeast will have wounded him. Gone so far are Laura Trott from Sevenoaks, who resigned as a junior minister. Then John Glenn, the Salisbury MP, quit from the Treasury. Shortly after that, David Johnson from Wantage in Oxfordshire announced he was leaving his job in education. Then the Eastleigh MP, Mims Davies, said she was leaving her job at Work and Pensions. And at Prime Minister's questions today, more calls for him to resign, including from the Worthing MP.
Does the Prime Minister think there are any circumstances in which he should resign?
I think, Mr. Speaker, clearly if there were circumstances in which I felt it was impossible for the government to go on and discharge the mandate that we've been given. But frankly, Mr. Speaker, the job of a Prime Minister in difficult circumstances when he's been handed a colossal mandate is to keep going. And that's what I'm going to do.
Well, Tim Lawton wasn't very satisfied with that answer, so this is what he told us shortly afterwards.
I have no doubt that if the no confidence vote that we had a few weeks ago was held today, it would be overwhelmingly a majority saying, sorry, Prime Minister, we don't have confidence in you, and then the processes could start. Of course, under the terms of the rules at the moment, we have to wait a year to do that. I think the 22 committee will now change the rules.
Well, opposition MPs are watching developments with a keen interest, including one of the Prime Minister's fiercest critics, Layla Moran, MP for Oxford West and Abingdon. Now, she's the only Lib Dem MP in the south or the southeast.
I think we're at the point where you can't absolve the responsibility of the whole of the Conservative Party in keeping him in place. Boris Johnson is the emperor that has no clothes, and it's time that he goes. But if he doesn't go, I think it is now incumbent on the Conservative Party to help him do the honourable thing and remove himself from office.
Well, Boris Johnson also faced quite tough questions this afternoon from MPs in the liaison committee meeting, including this from the MP from Romsey and Southampton North, Caroline Noakes.
Bullying and sexual harassment are about a culture of power. Have you just sat there and told us that alcohol is an excuse?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Is it throwing us off the story by trying to talk about alcohol instead of talking about the culture that has underpinned those behaviours?
Not at all. Not at all. I observe that some people seem to get very drunk, but that in no way minimises the underlying pattern of behaviour.
Well, that's what you've just done.
Well, many political commentators are wondering how much longer the Prime Minister can hang on. If he does go, then one of the favourites to replace him is Penny Mordaunt, MP for Portsmouth North.
Richard Lee, thank you very much. And for the latest developments, please go to our website.
Well, let's get reaction on the ground in Sevenoaks now. It's where the town's MP, Laura Trott, denounced Boris Johnson earlier today and resigned as a junior minister. James Dunham reports.
In the political theatre of Boris Johnson's premiership, Laura Trott was among the first of a growing list of Tory MPs to distance themselves from the top. Her resignation came just after 8 this morning. Trust in politics is and must always be of the utmost importance, she said. But sadly, in recent months, this has been lost.
Laura Trott.
Laura Trott has been seen as a loyalist, a supporter of the Prime Minister. Her resignation came as a shock. But the decision's gained support from her Sevenoaks constituents.
I respect what she's done. I think it's the right thing. I think she's lost trust and confidence in Boris, and he has to go.
I think a lot of people need to do what they feel is right. If they don't feel that they're not getting a lot out of the government to help society as a whole, I think she might have done the right thing.
She wants to maintain her dignity. She doesn't want to be rubbed into this, whole scandal.
But what about the bigger picture?
What do you think about Boris Johnson, the way he's sort of hanging on? I saw your face drop then when I said those words.
I think he needs to go, to be quite honest.
Simple as that?
Simple as that, yeah.
I voted for the Tories for the first time because of Boris Johnson, because I thought, he's the Brexit and everything. But what's happened in over the COVID and things like that, I disagree with. He's shown no morals, really.
But the Tory party is always just about power. What they want, they'll do. And they're going to get rid of Johnson because they think that he's losing them votes. And they hope they will have a new leader who will give them a bit of a bounce. They may well be successful. Who knows?
Sevenoaks is seen as a true blue seat. It's elected a Conservative MP every year since 1885, with the exception of 1 year in the 1920s when the Lib Dems took a seat briefly. Laura Trott has a majority of 21,000 votes. But with recent catastrophic by-election results for the Tories, can anywhere be seen as a safe seat for the Conservatives.
We have been hemorrhaging support for months, and it has got so bad that I've received emails from my residents in the ward where I look after people, and they have told me that they will not vote Conservative again whilst Boris Johnson is Prime Minister.
Tonight, many more South East MPs will be considering if the country's leadership needs fresh perspective. James Dunham, ITV News, Sevenoaks.
On to other news, and a drug driver who hit a pedestrian in Dover and left him to die in a skip has been jailed for 4 years. Donna Grant was driving under the influence of cannabis when she hit a man in the dark last year and then left the scene on Crabble Hill. Police believe he was propelled into the skip due to the impact of the collision.
British Airways has confirmed it's cancelling more than 10,000 flights this summer. The short-haul flights earmarked will be from Gatwick, Heathrow and London City Airport from the beginning of August until the end of October. Long-haul flights are not affected. Passengers will be offered alternative flights or refunds.
Brighton Council could take almost all of the profits from the I360 as it looks to restructure the attraction's loan repayments. The viewing tower currently owes the council more than £45 million. The new repayment scheme would see it handing over all of the cash within the business, except for operational costs every 6 months.
40 people have been arrested and more than 100 boats have been seized in a crackdown on criminal gangs smuggling migrants across the Channel to Kent and Sussex. Raids took place in the UK and across Europe in the biggest operation of its kind yet.
The gang, which was targeted, is suspected of illegally bringing 10,000 people to the UK, as Malcolm Shaw reports.
On a farm near Osnabrück in Germany, officers from the National Crime Agency, working with their European colleagues, search an outbuilding. Inside, they find the equipment on which the people smugglers depend. Scores of inflatable dinghies, barely adequate for a channel crossing, and hundreds of life jackets for the migrants destined to be crammed onto the boats. This operation is the biggest so far, targeting an organised crime gang thought to have brought 10,000 people to the south coast. Details were revealed at a press conference in The Hague this morning.
The German Public Prosecutor's Office in Osnabrück and the German police involved in this joint action day yesterday consider the whole operation to be a big success and a major step forward in fighting smuggler gangs who aim at gaining profit from the needs and despair of people. Thanks to this outstanding cooperation between our countries, on judicial and police level, the world seems to have become a little safer today.
Around communication between yourself and others concerning migrants coming into the UK, do you understand?
At Catford in southeast London, a man is arrested for conspiring to facilitate illegal immigration. He's one of around 40 people detained during the operation as a whole, the result of months of intelligence gathering and sharing across Europe and the UK.
This will have an enormous dent in the trade, but organised immigration crime, just like all organised crime, finds ways of adapting to law enforcement efforts. So they will attempt to come back from it. And it's our job with our partners to build upon this success and to exploit it as far as we possibly can, and then identify the next group that seeks to take over.
It's estimated that almost 13,000 migrants have arrived in the UK so far this year, though the French authorities have had some success in reducing the number of boats setting out across the channel. The National Crime Agency hopes this latest operation will disrupt the activities of one of the biggest players in the people smuggling. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News.
You're watching ITV News here in the Meridian region. Coming up, farming 21st century style, where machines have taken the place of farm labourers.
And staying on the farm and lavender as far as the eye can see. We're in the South Downs, where these fields have become a haven for wildlife.
And for more on all of our stories, please go to itv.com/Meridian. You can call us, remember, on 0808 1010 095. And you can also follow us, that's on Facebook, Twitter and on Instagram.
Now, it's claimed record prices at the petrol pumps have sparked a 40% jump in drivers trying to leave forecourts without paying in the first half of this year, with an average of around 3,000 thefts every month.
For the many hundreds of garage owners in our region, it's seriously hurting their incomes. The vast majority of drive-offs are not investigated by the police, and the money is very rarely recovered. With more, Nick Smith.
The cost of getting from A to B in roads on our region has never been higher. Average prices for petrol across the southeast are well in excess of 185 pence per litre. Parts of Kent and Greater London have some of the most expensive in the country at almost 190 pence. And it's seemingly leading to a growing number of drivers attempting to flee garage forecourts without paying, with reports jumping by a fifth from May to June. For this independently run petrol station on a busy A road, staff here tell me they're now dealing with several thefts a week.
It happens more often than you'd think it would happen. I'd say on average maybe 2-3 a week. We're used to dealing with it, but it still makes it very awkward for us because they expect us to sort the problem out for them as if it's our fault that they put fuel in and they can't pay for it. But realistically, it's not our problem.
The average price of filling up a family car is now close to £100. But once the wholesale cost and fuel duty is removed, this garage will only make 4 pence for themselves on every litre. With such low margins, those stealing fuel leave managers here with some serious costs to recover.
As an example, if we have somebody drive off with £50 worth of fuel and not pay for it, that will then take us the next £2,500 worth of fuel to actually rake that back. So we're making nothing out of the next 2,500, and that can be 15 to 20% of our fuel sales for the day.
And while so-called fuel bilking is a criminal offence, industry experts tell me in reality it's rare for the police to get involved, meaning they've had to develop their own methods of identifying culprits.
The police forces, especially over the last few years when they've been stretched with numbers, have said that it's a civil crime. We can't devote the manpower to come and investigate any crimes below £100, and we've seen that in writing, unfortunately. So what we've had to do is put a lot of self-help into the business. There are a number of companies out there that try and obviously get the information back quickly and pursue the people that have done that. So we're doing a lot of work internally as an industry to try and reduce these numbers.
Well, in response, a spokesperson for the National Police Chiefs Council insists they do have regular interactions with petrol stations about on-site security, and in a statement told ITV News, there can be difficulties investigating these types of incidents when the circumstances of each can be different. However, where sufficient evidence is obtained to show a crime has been committed, forces will act to make sure the offender is caught and prosecuted. With fuel prices showing little sign of any serious reduction, this spike in bilking may well continue for much of the summer and beyond. And for those garages that are run as small independent businesses, making up 2/3 of this market, it's yet another hit to an industry already struggling with very low margins and close to running on empty. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Well, let's cross to Mel Blore in our newsroom. And Mel, there's no escape from high prices, but some forecourts are even pricier than others, aren't they?
Yes, that's right. At the moment, filling stations are hovering around £2 a litre. Unleaded is a little lower than diesel, but the trend is upwards, certainly for the time being. Faced with this, motoring organisations and consumer groups are recommending that you try to access petrol price comparison websites or perhaps use comparison apps on a phone. Even in the most expensive areas for fuel, you can see that some filling stations charge up to 10 pence a litre less than others. And if you're driving an average family-sized car with a 50 litre or even 55 litre fuel tank, that adds up to quite a lot.
It certainly does. Mel, in our newsroom, thank you.
People from a village in Kent have held a protest to try to save their local bus service. Plaxtall near Sevenoaks is one of 39 county-wide routes under threat of closure. 15 of them are school services.
Well, councillors met today in Maidstone to decide on the future of those services, but campaigners say some routes are absolutely vital. Glenn Thompsett reports.
Residents of Plaxtall near Sevenoaks got together earlier this morning outside County Hall in Maidstone to make their feelings known about proposed bus service cuts. Over recent months, plans have been drawn up to withdraw almost 40 services across Kent, a third of them being school buses.
There's a huge amount of families that are going to be affected. There are whole communities that are going to be isolated. In particular, we're looking at 2 services in our village which will be taken away completely, both the school bus and the daytime service, because the knock-on effect of those funds being withdrawn means the operators won't be able to run those services from a viable perspective.
The move by Kent County Council is all part of a cost-cutting exercise to save £2.2 million.
Now, coupled with the £35 million that Kent County Council are going to get from the government for bus service improvements, every year the County Council has an underspend of around £15 million on their budget. It cannot be beyond the councillors to work out how to use that to avoid these closures.
The 2 services that run through this picturesque village are a lifeline for many people, including the transportation of more than 100 school children. The concern for residents here is that some will be totally cut off from everyday duties, such as shopping and hospital visits.
We are a very beautiful little village. However, you take that bus service away and we're going to be a very beautiful, isolated little village.
So I've got 2 children. I've got one that goes towards Sevenoaks Way and I've got one that goes towards Tunbridge for school. Quite how I'm going to get both of them to school, I have absolutely no idea.
Following today's meeting between residents and councillors, an outcome was partly reached. The school bus service, which is not completely subsidised by the County Council, will continue to run.
We have a team of public transport experts, and they have made a number of contacts with Autocar, who are the operators, who have agreed to reinstate the service. So children will get to school and they'll be brought home again.
Further scrutiny of the proposed cuts could still take place, but it's expected the services earmarked for closure could reach the end of the road by October. Glenn Thompson, ITV News, Plagstall.
And the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. It's Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the programme, we're live in Downing Street on another day of drama for the Prime Minister. All day, a bruised Boris Johnson has faced calls to quit, but he told Parliament he was determined to carry on.
The job of a Prime Minister in difficult circumstances when he's been handed a colossal mandate is to keep going, and that's what I'm going to do.
Even after that, the resignations just kept on coming as more colleagues called time on his leadership. Blasts away from Westminster, it's all kicking off in football too as the Women's Euros begin tonight. And we will have all the latest on that and more at 6:30.
Mary, thank you. Now, one of the biggest agricultural shows of the season gets underway soon, the Kent County Show at Detling. And if you've ever wondered what the future of farming might look like, here's a glimpse. A family who've been growing fruit in Kent for more than 50 years have introduced a fleet of robots to their farm at Coxheath near Maidstone.
Clock House Farm is home to the first large-scale autonomous technology trial of its kind. The machines could revolutionise the world of farming, but as our reporter Sarah Saunders found out, they do still have their limits.
As night falls on Clock House Fruit Farm, something begins to stir. 18 autonomous robots light up and swing into action. As part of the biggest farming robotics trial of its type in the world.
A variety.
We can see the robot now in the full light of day. What does it do?
So this robot, this particular robot, is applying a UVC treatment, which helps control mildew in the strawberry plant.
The robots emitting ultraviolet light treat miles of strawberries every week. Solar charged during the day, they operate when the farm is otherwise quiet at night.
So this robot is already very busy every evening with its UV treatment replacing the need for chemicals. But it's also got sensors at almost every point, constantly gathering information for future innovation.
Saga Robotics, who developed the machines, hopes they could have wider applications in future, including runner cutting and leaf thinning. But there's plenty they can't do. Humans are still the best fruit pickers.
As a sector, obviously finding labour is challenging at the moment, but also people don't want to think that jobs are going to be lost to robotics. But people were worried, does this mark the end of employment in this big sector?
Absolutely not. No, we still, as far as harvesting goes, we're very reliant on our seasonal workers. And the farm, we employ, there's a lot of other roles, a lot of other tasks on the farm that the robots can't do.
This family-run business has been growing fruit in the Kent countryside for almost 50 years. And they believe they've seen the future of farming.
It is the way it's going to go. It is the way it's going to go, and we're very excited to be part of that.
Sarah Saunders, ITV News, Coxheath.
Well, staying on the farm now, and here in the southeast, we are lucky to have some really beautiful landscapes, and nestled away on the South Downs is one place that looks spectacular at this time of year.
Yes, Lordington Lavender was started 10 years ago when local farmer Andrew Elms sold his dairy herd and was looking for a new way to use the land.
Well, the fields are open to the public from next week, and we've sent Philippa Drew to have a look around. Philippa, it looks absolutely amazing now. I bet it smells pretty good too.
Oh, I tell you what, it smells amazing. As I got out the car when I arrived, it really hit me. It's been warming up nicely in the sunshine. You could be forgiven for thinking we were somewhere in France, but you're quite right. We're here on the South Downs at Lordington Lavender. There's a bit of well-being going on just in the background there, and you can also get a slice of this next week with the open days. Here to tell us more is farmer Andrew Elms. Andrew, thanks so much for having us along today. Now, 20 years ago, you were a dairy farmer. What attracted you to lavender farming?
Well, back then I joined the Guild of Conservation Grade Producers and Fair to Nature, which is run by the RSPB. And under that scheme, I have to put 10% of all my farmland into actively growing crops for the flora and fauna of the farm, which has always been a passion of mine. And back then we were trying to encourage bumblebees onto the farm. And I thought I'd like some bumblebees here, but what the bumblebees like, and probably like many of you, I had some lavender plants around the back of the house, which there was bees on. So I decided to see if there's any chance of growing lavender here. And to my amazement, I found that lavender likes my soil conditions, so this is the result.
And it is an absolutely glorious result. The bees are loving it today. The sound is quite deafening amongst that lavender. If people do want to pay you a visit next week, what can they expect?
Right, well, they can come here and they can get a tractor and trailer ride from the car park into the farm. And then they can walk up and down the rows here, take in the heady scent of the lavender, listen to the sound and the drone of tens of thousands of honey and bumblebees, look out for all the different kinds of butterfly we have here, and generally have a sense of well-being and restored back to nature.
Oh, well, I certainly have a sense of well-being. The emphasis very much on conservation here on your lavender farm. Now, I love a bit of lavender. I'm not very good at growing it, but you've got some top tips for us, haven't you?
Right, well, yes, I do have one. So if your lavender's getting really unruly and very woody, go out in August, mid to late August, and cut it back into the wood here. And you only need to do that once every sort of 4 or 5 years, but it'll green up before the winter comes and you'll have a lovely shaped plant for the next few years.
Well, there we go, top tips. See, I'm not very brutal with mine, but clearly that's the way forward. And are you expecting a good crop this year?
I'm hopeful, yes. Normally we get about sort of 50 litres of oil off this patch of lavender here, but with the sunshine, which you're forecasting, I'm hoping for a little bit more, maybe up to sort of 75 or even more.
Well, I can guarantee it looks like next week will be bringing us lots of lovely warm sunshine, definitely rivaling Provence. Let's take a look at the full forecast.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Plenty more settled weather on the way over the next few days, then sunny spells warming up as the days go on, but of course in the sunshine UV levels will be high or even very high. Now it's all thanks to high pressure. It currently sits just to the west of the UK, but over the coming days it will work its way steadily eastwards, becoming well established across most parts by the weekend, keeping things settled and bringing those temperatures up day on day. Out there at the moment, clear spells. Those will take us through the first part of the night, but as the night wears on we will start to see more in the way of cloud drifting down from the north. That's in association with a very weak cold front. It could bring the odd spot of rain, but not amounting to very much. And for all of us, it will be quite a humid night. Temperatures in towns and cities probably hovering around 15 or 16 Celsius. So tomorrow morning, a somewhat cloudier start than we've had the last few mornings, courtesy of that weak weather front. But conditions will brighten as we head through the day. The cloud gradually thinning and breaking, some lovely sunshine coming through for the afternoon. And temperatures away from the breezier coast will be a pleasant 23 or perhaps 24 Celsius. And the settled weather set to continue for the next few days. Lots of sunny spells taking us into the weekend, and the temperatures rising through the weekend and into next week too.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
Well, we are very much in the midst of grass pollen season, although the peak has just about passed. But of course, with lots of dry and settled weather over the next few days, levels will remain on the high side. Do take very good care.
And in just a moment, the ITV Evening News continues tonight with Mary Nightingale in Downing Street.
I will be back with your late update. That's just after 10:30 this evening. For now, though, from the team here, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.